Thus he surpassed everyone's opulence. Duryodhana, being envious of his opulence, planned so many schemes to put Yudhishthira into difficulty. And at last the battle of Kurukshetra was brought about. After the battle of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhishthira was again able to rule his legitimate kingdom, and he reinstated the principles of honor and respect for religion. That is the beauty of a kingdom ruled by a pious king like Maharaj Yudhishthira. Srimangla Charan. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Patakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarobhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavalebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bhuter Matvir Yahima Puro Vibhu Nirmaya Shaite Yadamoshu Purusha Vungte Gunansho Dashisho Dashatmaka Sholam Kashishta Bhagavan Vachamsi Me Shri Krishna Sharanam Sharanagatam Katha Amritam Satata Pibatam Bhakti Vedanta Marga Panthanam Sarvaloka Rishi Deva Janma Prasannam Sarvaloka Rishi Deva Janma Prasannam. So, Hare Krishna everyone, and welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class on Canto 3, Chapter 1, verses 35 and 36. Today I'll be speaking upon a very relevant topic, I feel, in our normal everyday today lives and our feelings that we have in our lives every day. This topic of envy or jealousy is very appropriate, and through all this philosophy, especially in these two verses, this relevant topic can sometimes be hidden. So I'll be discussing this today. So in this purport, it says that his actual arms were Lord Krishna and Arjuna. So we're talking about Maharaj Yudhishthira here. That his actual arms were Lord Krishna and Arjuna, and thus he surpassed everyone's opulence. Duryodhana, being envious of this opulence, planned so many schemes to put Yudhishthira into difficulty, and at last the battle of Kurukshetra was brought about. So Duryodhana was envious of the insurmountable opulence that Yudhishthira possessed due to Lord Krishna and Arjuna. So one of the greatest problems of our materialistic society is the tendency to compare ourselves with others. I'm not as successful as this other person. This person has more likes on social media, or I need a better car than my neighbor. I need to go on a better vacation than my colleagues so I can show off about it. Or if I'm more valuable in this way, then I'm better. However, comparing oneself or ourselves to others is bound to lead to the impression that we are a failure. And because there is always someone who's more successful than us, or more interesting, more intelligent, we always will have this feeling of how can I beat this person? How can I be better than this person? So comparing, it is said that comparing is the end of happiness and the beginning of discomfort. So the moment we start comparing with someone else, that starts, we kind of enter into a state of frustration, because we can never be as the best in the world for something. There's always someone who's going to be better. So the mentality of comparing, it's a big obstacle in our life, and when we compare with someone, it's due to envy, because we want what someone else has and we don't have. So that causes envy, jealousy, and as we can see, Duryodhana was jealous that Lord Krishna and Arjuna were helping Yudhishthira, and he was jealous and he wanted to somehow experience that for himself. And thus we see that in the purport that it is said that he continually wanted to provide discomfort to Yudhishthira. So enviousness is the exact opposite of love, and in our tradition, in our philosophy, all suffering arises from envy. So what is envy as a definition? It is when we see someone else suffering, we have that slight pleasure. When we see someone else suffering, or if someone else possesses something and we don't, then we feel discomfort. So this is what envy is. And this very funny ancient story illustrates this. So there was once a very poor man, and he didn't have enough resources to supply his family with enough food. And one day he was sitting underneath a tree and was contemplating his situation and where he was. And suddenly he heard a voice saying that I'm the owner of this forest and I'm a powerful spirit, and I've noticed that you are in poverty and I want to help you. And this doesn't happen nowadays. This was something that would happen a long time back. And so he said that I'll grant you a wish under one condition, that for every wish I fulfill for you, your neighbor will get double that. I think everyone's heard this story, but I'll again continue. That for every wish I give you, your neighbor will get double. And the man, being in poverty, is like, yes, of course, if I can get anything I want, I'll take it as a blessing. So when he returned home, first wish he made was that I have too many children for this house. Can you make this house bigger? And in a matter of seconds, there was a house with 3 more rooms, and he was very happy. And the next morning when he left his house for work, he looked at his next door neighbor, and his next door neighbor his house was 2 times as big as his house. And he said, I'm very happy for you. And he stated that he didn't have to do anything for this, he just got it. So this man felt very weird that I met this forest spirit, how come my neighbor gets double? But again, he was trying to act as if he didn't care, and he said, I'm very happy for you. Like we do nowadays, we see someone else with that better car, better house, and we might not like it, but then when we meet them, we say, oh, very beautiful house, very beautiful this, even though from the inside we're feeling that envy or that jealousy that we want that as well. So again, he said that please, once he saw his neighbor's house, once he came back from work, he said that in the future I'll have grandchildren, I'll have more people in the house, can you make my house even bigger? So whoosh, and his house is 3 stories big, and it's massive. So again, he was very happy. Obviously this man was in poverty, so this is big things for him. So he looked out the window and his neighbor has a 6-story house. And of course this person, he at the moment he's like, okay, this is fine. I'm fine with this. But inside the fire of envy is just getting to him. So once he saw that, he mumbled to himself in a sarcastic way that, oh, good for him. But he wasn't really happy. So next morning he went and he said to the forest spirit that, I don't have enough food to provide, so can you make my field of crops, can you make it bigger? And again, he made it 10 times bigger and then it was filled with crops. And then he again went to his neighbor's crop, and of course it was 20 times bigger, because that was the only condition the forest spirit had. And at that moment he felt that envy, and he just couldn't bear with it, and he felt miserable that I met this forest spirit, why does he get better than me? And the next day he went up to the forest spirit and he said, I have a very unusual request, but I really want this will make me happy. And he said that, can you take one eye away from me? Now, how can this make someone happy? He was just because he was envious and he wanted the neighbor to feel suffering. He said, take one eye away from me. Next day he went to his neighbor's house, both of his eyes were gone, and he had that little bit of evil pleasure. And this was what envy can bring. Even though he could have asked for anything, and his neighbor gets double, but he always wants to be better and better and better. So I feel this story really perfectly illustrates what we are going through. Once we get that little bit, we want more and more and more, and it's never ending. Even the richest people in the world, in their interviews every day, they say that money cannot provide happiness, which is completely true. I feel that you still need money to sustain life, but you don't need excessive amounts of money. In Nectar of Instruction, it says that, in the second verse of Nectar of Instruction, it says, you should only eat and you should only possess the amount of money which is necessary to sustain life. And if we think about it in that way or form, we spend so much money on unnecessary things. We eat so much more food than we're supposed to. Then our stomach might be satisfied, but then our mind is like, no, you can eat that extra gulab jamun or rasgulla to again. We just keep going. That cycle is like it never ends. That we're always wanting more things. So we see envy as a very big problem in our materialistic society, and according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there are 3 things which we can practice in order to make spiritual advancement, so we don't look back at this thing which is envy. So the first one is that we sing the names of the Lord in a way which always keeps Him in our heart, and that He will always remember us. So not just for the sake of singing, doing kirtan, because you want to show your musical ability or you want to show your mridanga capability. No, you're genuinely trying to please the Lord by singing His glories. The second one is serving others who are on the path of Krishna consciousness. So being the servant, as we know, our constitutional position is to serve, and we have obviously forgotten that. We want to be the person who gets served, and once we start serving others, then we develop that mood of humble. We develop a mood of being respectful and being humble towards others who are on the path. The third one is small acts of service, which are so this is a very weird point, but it's small acts of service which can help other people, not just devotees. So, for example, if you see someone crossing the road who needs this, or just normal acts of kindness. So these are the 3 pillars, and if all 3 of them are destroyed, then we get envy in our hearts that that person is crossing the street with something in his hand which is more valuable than what I have, then I'm not going to help that person, or something like that. So It is not possible. We come back to this point of envy, that how can an envious person then chant the holy name? That it is not possible due to offenses that a devotee can be envious and then also chant that, because that's offensive. Then how can an envious person serve others and think of welfare of others as well? Now, it is not possible because the person will be unhappy when others flourish. Now, non-enviousness is freedom and envy is bondage. Now, needing to compare yourself with others is a form of bondage, because you are always thinking about what other people have rather than what you have or what you should be doing. So, what can we do in order to not compare ourselves with others and just concentrate on what we are going through in terms of if we are chanting? When we are chanting, when we are chanting, we shouldn't be thinking, oh, that person is chanting 5 more rounds than me. Or, no, you should be thinking, that person is glorifying Krishna and I should be serving him. That should be our mood. So, the beginning of deep satisfaction, of feeling content with ourselves, it can only start with a source of energy or a source of inspiration. In Bhagavad-Gita 13.34, it describes that as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body with consciousness. So you are like the sun, eternal, full of bliss, and that is the self. But it's covered with this body and a plan for life, which is the aim is for this life to make us happy. But we cannot find happiness in the material world. It's just not possible unless we are glorifying the Lord in some way or form. Now, we might be thinking, so all devotees in ISKCON or anyone who's chanting the Lord's names, how are they still unhappy? Because we see devotees being unhappy, being full of all these problems and everything. And it tells us in scriptures that the rasa we are looking for in this material world, it's not here, it's there. And that there is that it's in Krishna. So the more we glorify Krishna, the more we develop that deep sense of connection with Krishna, the more we lose that taste for envy and that taste that I need this, I need that, material possessions, which we don't need. So the way to become content with ourselves is not to compare ourselves with others, but also becoming absorbed in what we are doing in our service. Being absorbed in our spiritual practice can help us develop that taste for that nectar of Krishna consciousness, which is why we are suffering. No, we're not suffering because of Krishna consciousness. We are working our way so that we get that bond with Krishna, that connection. So now, again, we have so many unhappy devotees, and we need to find the reason, because everyone is chanting, everyone is listening to classes, everyone is glorifying, everyone is giving flowers, prasadam, everything. But again, that absorption, we're drawing our mind from material issues and absorbing our mind into spiritual connection is very important. When our mind is absorbed, then it turns into a hard shell, and all these material things that we keep on thinking while we're providing service, they just kind of bounce off the shell and just go. And inside that shell is our service that we are committing to. So another helpful practice is to not criticize other people, and this is probably the hardest part of living in life, because we are always, even if one little thing is not in the favor of us, or it's different to what our style is as such, we tend to criticize. For example, someone washes their hands in a different way than you're used to, like they just completely do it wrong. Now, at that point, instead of criticizing, oh, you are washing your hands completely wrong, we can go up to them, help them, not in a sarcastic way, but help them so they know where you are coming from, rather than they just hear you saying, oh, that's completely wrong, don't do this, don't do that. So it's better to... criticizing brings your mind into a wrong place. It's better if we are appreciating and then providing feedback. So, okay, that person might not be doing stuff in our style, but there are other good things about that person which we can think about. So our mind will not go into that dangerous area of envy if we commit to not criticizing other people. So Prabhupada, in a Bhagavatam lecture in Los Angeles, he says that the Krishna conscious movement is not for the jealous, not for the envious, because anyone who is envious or jealous is from this material world. He says, those who are jealous or envious, they are trapped in this material world, and those who are not are from the spiritual world. So he says, it's a very simple thing. You can test yourself. Am I jealous? Am I envious? Yes? Okay, I'm from this material world. If I'm not, then I'm from the spiritual world. So he says you can test yourself, which I found really funny, because if we're here, then we're already in the material world, because we have that point of envy or jealousy in our everyday to day life. Now, when devotees of the Lord, we need to rise above competition. We tend to compete. I've seen in programs who can serve the most prasadam in like 10 minutes. Or like you see these things where who's going to serve quickly. Everyone's fighting over service, or like you see this all the time. And anyone who can rise above that competition and also let others serve as well is also a great devotee of the Lord. They do not compete with materialists, because they are on the path to Godhead, which is full of eternal blissful situations. So such transcendentalists are non-envious and thus pure in heart. So in this material world, everyone is envious of everyone, and therefore, because we are envious, there's always that constant competition that, oh, I'm going to make better food than that person, or I'm going to get a better car, better house, better this, better that. And because as devotees, our only aim is to be free from this material envy, and to be a well-wisher of everyone, that person is getting a car, good on him. Even though, as we saw from that story, it's very tough to control your mind, and in that situation, Nectar of Instruction, verse 1, it shows us that if we want to control our mind, and the easiest way to do that is through chanting, through remembering Krishna at all times. And to remember Krishna at all times, we have to chant. And by chanting, you say someone's name enough, that person's image is just implanted into your heart and in your head. And every time you open your eyes, you think about something, that person will illuminate your thoughts. So, now, it is said that in Chaitanya Charitamrita that every man should act like this. When he meets a person who is more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate towards them. And when he meets someone equal to himself, he should make friendship with them. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this world. Sorry, this isn't from Chaitanya Charitamrita, this is from Bhagavatam. Yeah. So he says, in this beautiful verse, the purport, it's very small, I'm going to read it. It says, generally when we find someone more qualified than ourselves, we become envious of them. When we find someone less qualified, we deride them. And when we find someone equal, we become proud of our activities. These are the causes of all material tribulations. The great sage Narada therefore advised that a devotee should act perfectly. Instead of being envious of a more qualified man, one should be jolly to receive him. Instead of being oppressive to a less qualified man, one should be compassionate towards him and raise him to the proper standard. Now, when one meets an equal, instead of being proud of one's activities, one should treat him as a friend. One should also have compassion for people in general who are suffering due to the forgetfulness of Krishna. These important functions will make one happy within this material world. So these instructions by Narad Muni, Narad Muni is a Mahajan. He is a great personality, and thus words of a great personality, they are the truth, they are satya. So Mahashano yena gata sa pratanaha, that the Mahajana has shown us the path, and that is the path we should tread. Now, we have to follow the footprints of the Mahajans. Now, we don't have to manufacture our own path where we're making our own philosophy and pondering on life's many mysteries, because all of this has already been done before, and we all the answers have already been provided in Prabhupada's books. So when one meets a person who is more qualified, he should be pleased. Now, when we see someone who is more qualified, we usually have two reactions at that point. The first reaction is, most people have this reaction, or how can I become like him? Inspiration. Or, how did he get there? He shouldn't be there. I should be there, even though we don't have that appropriate knowledge to be there. Now, we are in the second form most of the time, where we are thinking, how did that person get to that position? That person has probably worked very hard or has done whatever he needs to, while we are sitting here pondering how he got there. So it's very funny, as though we think we should be somewhere, even though we haven't done the appropriate work. A lot of people, on Wednesday, I was talking to a group of friends about this, and one of the questions they asked me was, why can I not see Krishna? And I said to that person, it was just a question as, why can we not physically see Krishna? And I said to him, well, we haven't done the appropriate work. Who are we to see Krishna ourselves? We are in, I've said this plenty of times, we are in this material world without proper knowledge, without reading any proper scriptures, without chanting, without practicing, without doing proper sadhana. And who are we to see Krishna? That they are at least attempting to do something, they are still trying, and we can bring them up to the level by talking to them. Now, these are the dealings of a Vaishnava, a devotee. One who is not a Vaishnava, he behaves in the exact opposite way. Srila Prabhupada in this purport says, anyone who is less qualified, we usually deride them. And this is because we're materially engaged in this world. Now, there's different types of classes. There's Madhyamadhikari, Uttamadhikari, and it says that Srimad Bhagavatam Pramana Amalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam Tatra Daro Napara. Srimad Bhagavatam is Amala Pamanam, that the spotless proof, the Prema Pumartho Mahan, the Prema Bhakti is the highest truth. And this is, So it is said that one who does not accept Srimad Bhagavatam, he is punished by Yamaraja, not for one life, but janam, life after life. So we should accept Srimad Bhagavatam and all the dealings that are within Srimad Bhagavatam to help us understand, we should accept them. Now, I'm going to go through the different classes. So, Madhyama Adhikari in Bhagavatam 11.2.46. Ishwaretad adhineshu baleshu dvishtashu cha prema maitre kropoksha ya karoti samadhyamaha. That Ishware, one who has developed love for Ishwara, the Lord, the Supreme Lord Krishna, he is tad adhineshu, one who has developed friendship with those who are equal Vaishnavas. Balisheshu, one who becomes passionate or merciful towards the ignorant fools, the murkha, the one who ignores an offender, is a Madhyama Adhikari. That's how a Madhyama Adhikari behaves. Now, in Harinama Chintamani, Bhakti Vinod Thakur has also said that Krishna Preme Krishna Bhakti Maitra Acharana, one who develops love for Krishna and makes friendship of Krishna's bhaktas, is one who becomes passionate towards a murkha, an ignorant fool. And one who ignores an offender, one who behaves like a Madhyama Bhakta, he becomes a pure devotee eventually. This was Bhakti Vinod Thakur's instruction, that once he gets that qualification, in chanting the Krishna Nam, he becomes a pure devotee. Now, a Kanishta Adhikari, again from Bhagavatam 11.2.47, it says, Archayam eva harye pumjam ya shadyaye hate natat bhakteshu chanyeshu sabhakta praktaha samrata. That a Kanishta Adhikari is one who offers worship to the deity form of Lord Hari according to his ordinary faith. Now, it is a question of Shraddha. There are two types of Shraddha. When we speak of Shraddha, we mean Shastriya Shraddha. One should develop Shastriya Shraddha, not Lokika Shraddha, which is that we are compassionate towards other living beings rather than neglecting them. Now, the most advanced devotee sees within the soul of all souls the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Consequently, he sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord and understands that everything exists, is eternally situated within the Lord. It's from Bhagavatam 11.2.45. And also it says that this is an Uttama Adhikari, that he sees the moving and non-moving of entities, but he never sees the outward form. So he sees that his most beloved deity Krishna everywhere, and thus he's a completely Krishna conscious person because he's seeing him everywhere. Now, in Bhagavad-Gita 6.30, it says, one who sees me everywhere and sees me in everything, he is completely Krishna conscious. I am never out of his sight and he is never out of my sight. He sees me, I see him, and this is complete Krishna consciousness. This is Uttama Adhikari. He sees the moving and non-moving of entities and never sees the outward form. Now, there's another, it says Bhagavata Uttama. So this is also in Bhagavatam. It says, one who chants the holy name of the Supreme Lord Hari, even unconsciously, is freed from all sins. When Lord Hari grants liberation from sin to one who is unconsciously or negligently chanting his holy names. So the position of one who never abandons the shelter of this lotus feet of the Lord is considered highly exalted. Such a devotee never gives up on the association of other devotees and also the association of the Lord. And he is the most exalted devotee because he is always seeing Krishna and everywhere and in everything. Now, back to our main point of envy. Our goal, Prabhupada has written in his books that the Krishna conscious movement aims at creating an atmosphere of non-envy, and of course it is not possible because to become Krishna conscious to become Krishna conscious, we have to create an exemplary society where there is no envy. But now the question arises, in this modern society, it's very tough to have this thing. Even devotees are envious of other devotees. So enviousness means lust, and pride is we develop pride once we are envy. So if someone is making advancement on a spiritual path, others become envious of him. They can't tolerate it. They say, oh, he is advancing. So they start to speak nasty things about him, and they can't tolerate that he's making that advancement. So this is enviousness. In a society of Vaishnavas, this should not be happening. So only a Vaishnava who is non-envious can understand that this is all speculation. That Prabhupada says that one who is envious of the success of a Vaishnava is certainly not a Vaishnava himself, but an ordinary mundane man. He may be pretending to be a Vaishnava, but actually he's only an ordinary person. So if the purpose of forming his society, it's so important that we are not envious. It is said that generally when we find someone more qualified than ourselves, we become envious of him. Now, this is the general nature of normal people. It's not that everyone's like this. Most people are like this. And once we see that qualified person, we become envious. Now, as a Vaishnava who is completely Krishna conscious, he will never be envious. He sees the success of others as an offering to Krishna. So, I'll finish off on this point that instead of being envious of a qualified person, one should be jolly to receive him. So Krishna Preme Krishna Bhakti Matir Acharana. He who develops Krishna Prem, he develops friendship with Vaishnavas, with Krishna Bhaktas. And when he sees a qualified Vaishnava, a more qualified Vaishnava than himself, he becomes jolly. That is a real Vaishnava, a pure Vaishnava. This is the purpose of why Srila Prabhupada started this movement and why we shouldn't be envious. I think I've blabbered on a bit, sorry about that, but hopefully we get the main point of why enviousness should be neglected and how we should become more compassionate towards other people. So I'll finish off there. Thank you everyone for listening. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Gaur Premanande.